So this is a presentation about a ship or a boat, whichever is the one that people who are into ships or boats don't like you using for these kind of things. I think it's boat that they don't like, so let's use boat. This is a special ship. Yeah, this is a special raft that, due to circumstances beyond anyone's control, or maybe it is not beyond everyone's control, due to circumstances, could actually kill basically every single member of my family. That's fun, right?
Mm-hmm. That's exciting.
Yeah. Everyone looking forward? Story about death and destruction.
Everybody loves a bit of tension.
I'm hooked.
So the SS Montgomery, or the SS Richard Montgomery, named after a major general in the Continental Army, which is the army that the US, Revolutionary Army basically was. He's essentially a kind of nothingy person. He's just one of those generic generals that happen to exist in armies. He was born in Ireland to an MP, basically, son of an MP. He was essentially landed gentry. Had a commission in the British Army, and then 20 years later had a commission in the American Continental Army. He died relatively uneventfully, trying to invade Quebec, which is fun. The important thing to note about Richard Montgomery is that there's not really much to know about him.
He just happens to be the namesake of this canoe.
Yes, he just happens to be the namesake of this canoe. The SS Richard Montgomery, its early life, as we will call it, it was created in 1943, so the height of World War II, in July, in Florida. It was one of a thing called a Liberty ship. There are about 3,000 Liberty ships made over the course of the World War II, and they were essentially cargo ships. They were built massively en masse is how they were built, because they were cheap, they were easy to build. You could build an entire Liberty ship in essentially a month.
Wow.
And because of their low cost and their ease of building, they were just mass produced essentially. So this SS Richard Montgomery, was one of many, many ships. 3,000 in total, as I say.
If we're going to name ships after boring guys like this, I think that we need more Boaty McBoatface competitions.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Essentially, this ship didn't have a very eventful life either. Much like Richard Montgomery himself, lived a relatively generic life for a cargo ship. For the first year, its life was basically just doing cargo runs around as and where it was asked to go, essentially. Nothing of any note that I could find anywhere about any of its missions prior to August 1944.
Ooh.
It was about a month after the D-Day landings, or the Battle of Normandy, one of the big ones, basically. When all of the Allies got back onto continental Europe, they needed loads of resupply ships to provide food, ammunition, extra people onto the continent so that they could continue their campaign within World War II. So the SS Richard Montgomery was asked to travel from Philadelphia to the UK with 6,000 tons of ammunition, which is quite a lot of ammunition, right? This was sort of small arms ammunition, explosives, and also white phosphorus.
Holy shit. That's legal, isn't it? Now, white phosphorus? That's chemical weapons.
White phosphorus, yeah. The thing about white phosphorus is it burns incredibly hot and can also set alight incredibly easily. Just on contact with air, essentially it just sets on fire.
What are they called? It's that whole column in the periodic table, isn't it, that does that, lithium contact with water explodes as well.
Yeah, it's quite a dangerous substance essentially, and it was carrying not 6,000 tons of white phosphorus, but enough tons of white phosphorus for it to be scary. So it left at the beginning of August 1944, travelled across the Atlantic, and stopped in the Thames estuary.
good place for it to be. That's where I want all that phosphorus.
So the Thames Estuary was essentially like a holding off point for for this convoy of cargo ships to travel from the UK to mainland Europe to resupply all of the people on the ground in France and Denmark, all of the places, that area, you know what I'm talking about. So it had arrived. It had been told by the Thames Estuary port authorities, essentially, here's a spot, these are these coordinates. You need to stand there, basically. Here's a parking spot, essentially. Sit there, wait for the rest of your convoy to go, and then you can bugger off. Normal Liberty-class ships, of which Montgomery was one of them, had a certain, tolerance of how deep the water they could be in. Which is the same for basically every ship. You have a certain, length of water, depth of water that you can safely travel in. And the parking spot that the Port Authority had essentially given to the SS Richard Montgomery was fine if the SS Richard Montgomery hadn't had 6,000 tons of ammunition on it.
Oh shit, it was just too heavy for the depth of water.
Yeah. So, because it had been given this particular parking spot, and due to a bit of shifting because of the wind and a bit of stormy seas, it found itself stuck on a bank of sand. So if you imagine the sand was up like that on the Thames Estuary, it had essentially got the middle of its ship stuck on the point of one of these sandbanks, essentially. So then as the tide went down, all of the weight of the ship was put onto the ship, and it consequently split in half.
Oh shit.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's not great.
This is I'm just thinking of that. Is it the Evergreen, the big boat that was stuck?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask if that's
Inspiration.
where this idea came from.
No. Well, so this was slap in the middle, so it broke. Within 3 days, the 23rd of August, they started a salvage operation to try and get as much of the explosives and the ammunition away from it as possible. They did that for about a month, and on the 25th of September, they decided it was too dangerous to get any more because they'd started to sink a little bit more, and water was in all of the compartments, and so they were unable to continue the salvage operation, leaving approximately 1,500 tons of high explosives sitting about 250 metres off the coast of Kent.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
heist time.
including white phosphorus. It's so bad. So have a bit of context about where this is. Here is a map of the UK, and where the Thames Estuary is in this little circle here. Mm-hmm. So if we zoom into this little circle, oh, fancy. This is essentially where we're talking. This big river here is the River Thames. Snakes all the way past Grays, all the way into Canby Island, etc. This is the Thames Estuary. This line here is the M25. Some people would consider this is a hotly contested topic, but some people would consider this a boundary of London. Mm-hmm. And for our purposes, that's what we're going to say. We're just going to say that's the boundary of London. Just for simplicity's sake, I appreciate there are different interpretations of where London starts and where London ends, etc. But for our purposes, let's say the M25 is our boundary for this, for London. So you can see it's not that far away from London here. It's about 25 miles from the M25 to where the shipwreck is. Mm. And the shipwreck is here. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit small. Here's an arrow. Here's another arrow. It's right there. It's about 250 meters. It's not that far off of the coast of Sheerness, which is the most local town. Here is the closest major airport, mm-hmm. which is Southend Airport. Just to give you a context of sort of how close it is to quite important infrastructure. interestingly enough, Southend Airport has in recent years started marketing itself as Southend London Airport.
Interesting.
I will remind you that this is our boundary of London. I don't know if you've noticed, but that's not on the left-hand side of this boundary.
Can you imagine being that
Stop.
close to the coast and marketing yourself as London? Like,
Well, it's to get people flying, because it's an
Yeah.
international airport, so they get people flying and saying, oh, yeah, it's London.
no,
I
I'm
mean,
sure
it is
it's
an hour.
very effective.
It is an hour on the train to get from Southend to London,
Yeah.
but still,
I mean, you can
It's
get
not
to
London.
Brighton in like an hour and a half.
yeah. I know what you're thinking. So you've got 15,000 tons of high explosives. What happens if it explodes?
Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
Well,
Show me the radius.
well, according to reports, it's somewhere between 10 and 25 mile radius of damage, essentially, will be caused if
Fuck.
this explodes.
What the?
How much of
Fuck,
that is
really?
complete destruction?
So it won't be complete destruction, obviously. There'd probably be quite a lot of destruction in Sheerness, which is the nearest town. But the latter ends of that will just be things like broken windows. I mean, the broken windows will still cause a lot of damage. It's a heavily populated area. There are millions of people living in this square, including all of my family, by the way. Literally every single member of my family, apart from myself and a couple of other people, live in this square.
10 miles though. That I can't even comprehend that. Like,
Well, let me show you what 10 mile square radius, 10 mile radius looks like. But I know as a show, we don't have a particularly good track record with area. So I tried really hard to get this right. If I've gotten it wrong, I'm so sorry.
I believe in you, Jack.
Please. This, I think, is 10 mile radius of damage.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So you can see it's encompassing the airport. It's also encompassing a pretty large gasworks as well.
A few more miles.
Ideally placed.
And
Yeah,
like
it's-
actually that airport as well. Like when you
Yeah.
noted the airport's existence there, I was like, well, that's fine. It's far away. Wow.
Yes. For the bigger estimate, so if it were to go to 25 mile radius of damage,
That's huge.
yeah.
What?
And of course, like the further out, it's not going to be like
Yeah.
it's not going to destroy buildings, but it will like break glass, presumably cause lots of accidents on roads because it's an incredibly busy road area.
I mean, even just the idea of it being heard and felt that far away is like hard to
Yeah.
imagine.
Coming for
And,
you, Burnham on Crouch.
Yeah.
Billericay.
Yeah, Billericay. Oh my god, Billericay. I mean, it could blow up Billericay and there wouldn't be that much damage. Me being rude about Billericay.
Nothing
innit?
lost.
The important thing to remember, of course, though, is it won't hit London.
Just barely.
There's a tiny bit of overlap there. There's a tiny little bit.
I do tell a lie a little bit here. If it did explode, it would cause an enormous tidal wave,
Oh,
which would travel all the way up the Thames and probably cause some damage across low-lying areas.
shit.
Yeah, like a couple of meter high waves, potentially going through London.
Can you imagine, like, making a mistake that big?
Right, do
like-
boats going through there have to like be aware of this to avoid it?
Yes, so it's charted on every single maritime map of the area.
Wow.
It's like and it's also got like buoys, however you want to say the word, and charting out where you're not allowed to go into. It's like it's a known feature. If you sail or if you do boat stuff in this area on the Thames estuary, then you will know about it because it's heavily marked. It's got constant 24/7 radar tracking on it.
It's kind of
So if anyone
good.
goes anywhere near it,
Yeah, that's kind of good. I was thinking, like, that's a big red button for people to push, isn't
Yeah.
it?
well, there have been moments where occasionally people have gotten confused by what the boys, how do you say that word?
I think boy.
The boys, they've gotten confused by what those mean, and like occasionally you get someone who goes a little bit too close because they think they're meant to go inside them.
Right.
Not great. And of course you get the occasional like, idiot on a canoe basically paddling up and taking a picture. Oh, look at me, I'm in the place you're not meant to be, kind of person.
I'm gonna kill all of Jen's family.
Oh no! Don't kill my family, please. What is the risk of this actually happening? This is a picture of the scene at the moment. You can see all three of the masts are still visible because it is relatively shallow water.
Oh, that's the actual canoe. That's the actual boat.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yes. The danger of this happening is difficult to say. Obviously, the local residents are all convinced that it's gonna blow up and kill them.
They've all got
But then you have, like-
shelters.
Yeah, The people who are most affected by it are obviously the most concerned by it. So the people in Sheerness obviously are like pretty concerned that it's gonna explode anytime soon, and if it explodes, it will definitely kill them. Like bomb disposal experts are saying that it's stable, so it's not necessarily gonna explode. Of course, it is deteriorating over time. All of the fuses and stuff will have deteriorated already. They'd have rotted away, but all of the explosives, they don't disappear, so they still exist. There was one guy who was like, some SAS guy, some person was like, "Oh, I blew up loads of explosives in water only 2 days ago, and it didn't do any damage." And I was like, "Yeah, but also this is a ship full of
This is a lot
explosives."
of them. This is like more than that, though.
Yeah, so I don't know quite how realistic that interpretation is. I was watching a documentary from 2005 about this, and there was an interview with the local MP, and the local MP was like, "So it's fine to leave it and wait for the moment. However, a decision needs to be made for what to do with it within 10 years. That documentary was 2005.
Oh, fuck. Oh my god. And they just haven't done anything.
They haven't done anything. Last year they did. They put a tender process out for a company to destroy these masts here, because
the most likely way for something to set it off is to just crash into the...
Yeah, and they're deteriorating faster because they're open to the elements, and any waves, they're getting hit by the waves a lot easier. Anytime there's a storm, they get moved, those kinds of things. So I don't know whether those masts have been removed yet, but they were definitely last year putting in a tender process to get rid of them.
I wonder if this is affecting people's insurance premiums.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. There are 3 things that you can do to try and stop this from exploding and killing everybody in my family. The sort of the lowest tech one would be literally sending divers down and picking up each individual thing one by one. That's a process that would take about 6 months.
Just
would
because
be
there's so
incredibly
much
dangerous
stuff.
Yeah, because there's so much, and it's in a really dangerous situation.
Wow.
It would be really take a long time, be very dangerous, be very expensive, and also there's the chance of you slipping and blowing everything up. So that could happen. So that's sort of something that they don't really think would actually happen. They could have also towed the entire boat away. This is something that probably could have been done 30 or 40 years ago, but probably due to the deterioration of the ship in the last sort of 10, 15 years, it's become less of an idea and less of a good idea. Because as like the sandbanks have also started to cover it, so it's not as simple as just picking it up and moving it anymore. It would just disintegrate. But if you tried to do that, so you'd need to have some sort of technology to like maybe scoop it up or something and drag it. It would be difficult to do that. The other option, and I personally think this is probably the best way to deal with it, is essentially put a little hat on it.
Just like a
Cover it
little
in a dome.
Yeah.
Cover it in a dome and make sure the dome is powerful enough to withstand the explosion and leave it there to do whatever you want with it.
But then if
much
it
less likely
explodes,
to-
there'll be like an earthquake, but not necessarily
yeah.
like a tsunami.
Yeah. So it's of the three options that they really have, that's probably the safest. They're probably the most expensive.
What about...
Because you've then got to design and build a dome that will fit over a massive ship that can also withstand a massive explosion. Yeah.
Yeah, but what he's doing needs doing.
Yes. The fourth and final option, actually, is they could do what they've always done and not do anything.
Leave it there.
So I think we can all take a guess at which one they're actually going to do.
I mean, it's scary to take a risk on doing something and doing it wrong, isn't it? Obviously.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be the person responsible
Yeah,
for that.
because that is the thing, right? Is
You end up...
doing something invites risk, because you could just set it off. So it's a really difficult situation to be in. So good luck.
Jeez. Good luck, all of Jen's family.
Hope no one dies. Hope we don't break the windows.
Here's my suggestion. I was thinking fill it with concrete and then lift it up and tow it away. But then I was like, what if the concrete like jostles stuff inside?
Yeah, it would 100% jostle.
So then I thought, fill it with like some kind of powder that turns into jelly in the water. And then it won't be as thick as the concrete to jostle it on the way in. And then it'll gellify around. So it won't move anything, it'll just be there. And then everything will be nice and suspended. And then you lift up. That's my...
And then you also got some lovely jelly to eat afterwards.
That's a delicious jelly. That's my plan.